Dallas
All
has
right, hey guys.
behind him. Sorry.
This is Matt, and I'm here with Jody and Dallas from Bromance Wargaming. Excuse me. Our friend Yoshi may be joining us in a little bit. This week, what are we doing this week, Jody?
This week we're rating top five Warhammer armies, what each individually think the top five armies are, and then if we have time, we're going to go over what we individually think the bottom three armies are. So I think it'll be fun. I like rating things on scales of 1 to 5, 1 to 10, 1 to 20.
So that's why you like fantasy football.
That's the truth.
Just a few months away.
I can't even pick Josh Gordon to carry me to second place anymore. He's suspended for like the whole year. What the heck?
Got to go with Johnny Football.
Johnny Football. All right. I guess I'll go ahead and start off. Jody, you grew much younger in the entering seconds here. So, for me, my number one the top army, the best army, and this is a cop-out, so you guys can feel free to trash me for it. It's a tie, but since I have to rate it, I'm going to rate very, very minusculely Chaos Dwarves as my top.
Really?
As my top army. Yeah.
Oh, that's out of nowhere.
I think you say that sarcastically, considering the amount of times I rant about Chaos Dwarves.
No, that's sort of like Ron Paul winning the presidency. That's just out of left field.
Ron Paul for 2012.
Wait. Yeah, let's do it. Ron Paul 2012. Go get him. Go get him, Marty McFly. All right. So, and really, realistically, my reasons are, and this is the reason it's hard for me to say it's number one. The book is broken. And I don't mean that like it's overpowered. Certainly parts of it are overpowered. My problem with the book comes from the fact that it's either overpowered or garbage. Like, I don't know. And so the thing that gets me, though, is the stuff that works really works. And it kind of compensates for the fact that the stuff that doesn't work is pretty trash. But like, and I started playing in 4th edition, and I was introduced to to the game by a guy who played Chaos Dwarves, and it always frustrated me that they were dwarves plus. Like, they're dwarves plus really nasty magic. Yeah, they don't get the runic magic item system, but ultimately, I think having an entire extra phase of the game really makes up for that. The Kadai Destroyer obviously is ridiculous. The Magma Cannon is obscene. The spell lore is... I can't even express how much I hate that lore. Like, yes, Ash Cloud is terrible, and everybody everywhere should just like punch someone in the groin who made Ash Cloud. But the rest of the lore is just... it's a great mix of spells. Like, when you talk about like the lore of Shadow, there's no direct damage in the lore of Shadow. There's Occams, or Occams makes you better. Withering and Enfeebling make them worse, and there's some movement stuff. Or lore of Fire is like a bunch of direct damage and one buff spell. I guess there's two, but who takes Cascading Fire Cloak? Come on. But the Chaos Dwarf lore is just really well not balanced. Is really diversified, and so it makes taking that lore not a bad thing. That's pretty much my reasons. I think that the stuff that works well, the magic, the war machines, and the Kadai Destroyer, just really make up for the fact. Oh, and I think they have like stubborn infantry. It's like dwarf special, only it's better because it has a 4-up armor save or something. Again, they're just dwarves plus. Their sorcerers are also Empire engineers. Come on, people. Why do we need this army?
I could see that. My problem is it's hard for me to necessarily put them in, as I've only really played them once, I think. So I hardly ever see them, so it's hard for me to really rank them amongst all the armies. And anyway, they're not, legit GW armies.
The Chaos Dwarf players are going to be mad at you that you said that. All that being said, I'm really tempted to start a Chaos Dwarf army because I really want to do steampunk Chaos Dwarves. My wife is really into steampunk, so I'm like, oh man, I could totally do steampunk. But then I look at the amount of work and money that's going to involve, and I lose my hobby chubby. It's just too much. So, Chaos Dwarves aside, number 2, which really could win the spot for number 1, is Dark Elves. Very near and dear to my heart is Dark Elves. And Dark Elves are a good army for all of the reasons that the Chaos Dwarves aren't. Dark Elves are a good army because Dark Elves compete in every phase, barring like 2 choices. Their book is very well balanced. I mean, yeah, people crap on the Bloodrack Medusa. Yeah, people crap on the Bloodrack Shrine. They crap on the Scourge Runner Chariot, but those are okay. Excuse me. In Orcs and Goblins, those would be amazing choices, and nobody would ever not take them. But you know, aside from a couple outliers, the Warlocks are way too good, and the Admiral of the Dread Fleet is so bad that you guys probably don't even know what he does. And that's fair, because I had to look him up before we started talking today.
He's a pretty cool model, though.
You know, that's kind of a love it or hate it model. I actually really dislike the fact that he has a sword leg, and it has to do with the fact that there's not enough surface area. So, like, he would always be sticking into wood, or he would sink up to his knee in sand and stuff. It kind of, like, blows it for me. I know that's a stupid thing when he's wearing a cloak made out of the skin of a slain sea dragon, but for some reason it bugs me.
Legit.
I mean, other reasons that Dark Elves are good: great fast cavalry, great special rules. They have great infantry models. Rerolls always helpful. A good selection of hitting power, and plenty of stuff that can chaff. I know a lot of people are down on the Harpies because the Harpies went up quite a bit in points, but honestly, the 20 points difference between the units that you're taking, I mean, it was 55 points last edition, it's 75 this edition. Oh no, it's 20 extra points. Wah. Like, they're still the same thing as they were before, and they cost a little bit extra. Well, of course they do. Everything in the Dark Elf book in 7th edition was pretty much undercosted. But yeah, the book just has all sorts of synergy with itself. They get all the lores of magic, barring like racial lores. It's just excellent. I don't really have anything else to say about it. I play it. I never get tired of the different variations of lists I can build, and most of them are pretty good. So I think that's the mark of a really strong army.
Why isn't that one a number 1 army? What makes it not as good as Chaos Dwarves?
Nothing in the Dark Elf book is as bad as Ash Storm, the Kadai Destroyer, and Magma Cannons. There's really good stuff in the Dark Elf book, which is why I had problems with it with ranking, because theoretically I think the book is better, but I think that Chaos Dwarves might edge out into being a stronger army just because there's less moving parts. They have a couple really strong things in the list that kind of work independently of each other, and so you don't really need to finesse it. It's kind of like, okay, here's a Kadai, here's some Magma Cannons, we're going to see if I can kill people before they figure out how to stop me. Whee!
Excellent.
Third, I really think the third most powerful army. I have trouble with this one. I have trouble putting this one up here, and I'll get into that in a second. But the third one for me, Warriors of Chaos. And Warriors of Chaos really gets it because Warriors of Chaos is the very epitome, the epitome, if you will, of meta-defining. There's lots of unkillable people, lots of high armor saves, chariots that are high toughness, crappy monsters, also a thing in the meta, and the Demon Prince. He is his own category. Demon Prince Bad Touch just gets his own little piece of Warhammer immortality. And so and it's kind of like the Chaos Dwarves. The stuff that works in Warriors works really well, or at least works pretty consistently. The Demon Prince is great. The Chimeras are good. Throg is excellent, and thus makes Trolls really excellent, as Dallas knows. What else? The magic, like Slaanesh magic, is good. They also have access to Shadow and Death and Metal, which are all good lores. Excuse me. I think probably the lore of Tzeentch is their weak point or whatever, but I don't really care. Mark of Nurgle is really good. All their chariots are good. Really, the stuff that bugs me about Warriors of Chaos is they really drop the ball on some stuff, like Dragon Ogres, and don't really see much play, and I don't see much point for them. Chaos Knights, same difference. I don't see a lot of point to them. They're kind of like weaker Juggernauts in Special, or weaker Skull Crushers in Special. Who's really I don't know. Maybe people do max out their rares with Warriors of Chaos, but it seems like kind of unnecessary. Anyway, so I don't know. It's got great characters, and the stuff hits like a ton of bricks. That's pretty much why Warriors of Chaos is 3. But like I said, I have some problems with that just because it's kind of easily countered. They don't have a shooting phase unless you take a Hell Cannon, but even then, it's not a very good shooting phase. The book is not very balanced. Like Forsaken, what do they do? Chosen, does anybody use them anymore? The Slaughter Brute, never heard of it. The Mutalith Vortex Beast, does anybody other than Lord Tremendous ever even put it on a field? I mean, so I don't know. So I have that contention.
Yeah.
Number 4. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It's the type of army the list writes itself. It's like, I mean, you just can see what's the good stuff.
Yeah, and that's a very good observation, and that's really what I meant to say about Chaos Dwarves too. The list writes itself. Everybody knows what they're going to take. You're forcing yourself to take suboptimal stuff. I watched a battle report today online where somebody was like surprised. They were like, "Oh my gosh, somebody's taking foot Warriors of Chaos. Where are their extra chariots?"
In the mail.
Excellent. Very true. Very true. Number 4, Near and Dear, which you guys should have guessed would be on this list at some point because of my constant complaining about one particular thing in the army. This one is close to Jody's heart. It is High Elves. High Elves come in under Warriors of Chaos. High Elves have most of the good things that Dark Elves have. They have good special rules. Dark Elf special rules are better.
Yeah.
They have a good selection of units, even though their fast cav mysteriously can't have a 4-up armor save. They have really good shooting. Like their shooting, I think, is actually the Wood Elves are really good at shooting, but High Elf shooting is really very good. And I think that not enough people take Sisters, High Elf Sisters. What are they? Sisters of Avalorn or something?
Something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
I just think, what are they, ballistic skill 5 or something?
Yep. Strength 4.
Yeah, that's
magical.
Yeah, that's like I don't think enough people take them, and that gets to my second point though, because High Elves have one of, if not the best monsters after King of the Pile, Kadai Destroyer, the Frostheart Phoenix. Frosty will beat you up and take your lunch. He doesn't care what you are, unless you are like a unit that has a billion static combat res and somehow he flubs his leadership role. He is just going to make a mess out of you. Plus, he combos well with everything. He's good on his own. He's good by himself, or he's good on his own, and he's good to combo in with the unit. He's really versatile. I think he's certainly worth all of his points and then some, probably. He's really excellent. I love the Frostheart Phoenix. I never ever want to fight one again. Scary, scary stuff. But, of course, the thing that makes High Elves good that I hate about them is that they Death Star like a beast. And it's all because of that banner that I'm not even going to get into. I hate that banner with a flaming, flaming passion, but not magical because that banner does not get a 2-up ward save versus my hatred of it. But, like, the whole book seems like it's made to Death Star, and it makes elves, which are already pretty killy, the book makes them pretty survivable too. So I actually think that's a big deal. You know, like I actually like to run Lore of Life with my Dark Elves because Dark Elves kill crap really, really well. What Dark Elves do badly is stay alive. And so I really like the life to, you know, regrow or get extra toughness or whatever, just to help me, give me that edge so I have bodies left to fight. And I think High Elves just does that better than Dark Elves because High Elves have high magic, and so they make themselves harder to wound while also casting other spells. And so I think that's really excellent. That's a great mechanic, and it's frustrating to go against, but I don't have, like, you know, balance-wise, it doesn't hurt any more than anything else in that book. And last, unless anybody has any questions about High Elves, I'm sure Jody wants me to rate them higher than Dark Elves, but
Why do you say that they are worse than Dark Elves? What's the big glaring difference?
Warlocks. Honestly, it's really small. Like, the difference to me between Dark Elves and Warriors and High Elves is not a very big. Like, all of these are really close. To me, this isn't like in 7th edition there was like 3 or 4 power armies, and once you got away from there was a huge drop in power. These are all pretty comparable. I don't think that High Elves are necessarily going to lose, you know, 60% or more of their games versus like Chaos Dwarves. Well, first of all, they won't, because they'll just LOL Dragon Princes into everything in the Chaos Dwarf army because it all has flaming. But really, it's the little stuff. It's the stuff like their characters don't have fast cavalry on elven steeds, I think. Unbarded elven steeds, whereas Dark Elves do. Dark Elf characters have fast cav on steeds. Their fast cav can't have a 4-up armor save, whereas Dark Riders can. Repeater crossbows are actually better in some situations than longbows. So it's, you know, it's kind of like a mix, but the sisters really tip that balance to them being able to shoot well. But the repeater crossbows are really great, especially on chaff. Like 5 Illyrian Reaver shots, what are you going to do? You know, you're going to kill a Wolf Rider or something. 10 crossbow shots, it's not much better, but the upside is higher. You know, you're rolling more dice. Oh, excuse me. You have more chances to get better rolls. It kind of mitigates bad rolls more. And then also, Murderous Prowess is way better than Martial Prowess. Martial Prowess is good, don't get me wrong. I like it as a rule. It makes for some really fun shenanigans that High Elves can do with White Lions. Like, oh, look, I have 9 White Lions. I'm just going to run them 3x3. Trollolololol. They're stubborn anyway. They don't care. And they're about as big as my pinky finger, and they hit like a ton of bricks, and they just kind of squeeze into whatever combat they want. Stuff like that is fine, but Murderous Prowess, I think, is more useful overall. And so I think just a combination of that stuff, and of course, Warlocks. I mean, Warlocks.
Facts.
Jody, you have any questions?
First, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. My video doesn't seem to be moving at my end, so I didn't know if you guys... I have a still frame of my eye, and that's it. No questions. I mean, I'll get to my rankings, and when I do, I'll dissect a couple things a little differently. So we'll just wait until then.
Okay. And then number 5 for me, this was kind of a tough one. I didn't really have a number 5. I had to really kind of think deeply about this. Number 5 for me, and this I think shows what kind of player I am, number 5 is Empire. And the reason that it's Empire is because Empire essentially has an answer for everything. You know, they have a broad spectrum of magic. They have a broad spectrum of troops that they can wield. You know, they have 1-up cavalry. They have decently cheap, buffable hordes of people. They have great synergy allowed in their list. They have excellent shooting. You know, they have cannons, and yes, they're not dwarf reliable cannons, but they're cheaper than the dwarf reliable cannons, and they're backed by cheaper people, and they have a more diverse army selection. Really, Empire for me is a toolbox kind of army, and that I think speaks to me. I like the ability to use an army like that. Excuse me. My problem with Empire, and the reason that it doesn't rank any higher, even though I really like an army that plays like Empire, seems to play to me, is that this is all that synergy that I think is really good. I think the book is a little too reliant on that synergy, and so if something falls down, you don't place your Huracanum where you want it to play, where you want to place it, or somebody like assassinates a warrior priest, or your guy gets shot off of his Pope mobile. Bad things can start to happen, and it's kind of just like a house of cards. You knock one out, maybe it'll stand up, but not really. It's just going to Jenga all over the place. But I like the way that the list plays, and I think that it has answers to almost everything that can be thrown at it. Maybe not in the same list, but it can be tailored really well, and I like that about that list, or that army book. And so that's my number 5. I have to say, though, just below that is Orcs and Goblins for almost the same reason, but the only reason Orcs and Goblins don't get the nod over Empire is because Orcs and Goblins are unreliable, and cannons are better than rock lobbers. Like the Orc and Goblin troops are better, but they don't have the wealth of magical options, and they have Doom Divers instead of Hellblasters, and I'll just count that as a wash. I mean, they're both probably better in certain circumstances, but the Rock Lobber is the Orc and Goblin way to deal with big threats, and it's much less exciting to drop a rock on something than it is to fire a laser-guided missile at it from a cannon.
Actually, it's interesting. Your reasons for picking them 5th are actually my reasons for them being edged out of my top 5. The versatility, I love it, but I feel like they don't have a list that's just awesome, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, they have a lot of good lists. They have some really good things in their army, but especially to take out the stank, I just feel like not that they're easily countered, but they're only human, and they die really, really easily.
That's true, they do.
But they were close. They were definitely close.
All right. Well, that's my top 5, unless anybody has any other questions.
No,
Yeah.
Sounds like a good list to me.
It does.
All right, who's next then?
All right, I'll go ahead and go since it looks like Jody's glancing through his glasses. My number 1 top army of Warhammer, I would actually go with Demons, which was oddly not even on your top 5, Matt, which is kind of fun. Reasons for that is mainly, one of the big things is ward saves. Like, the static 5-up ward across the army is awesome. And the reason why I say that is there's so much that if it didn't have that ward save, you could counter. You could, shoot them with cannons, but hey, everything they got has the 5-up ward. They only have 1 in 3 of it failing. Or if you drop a rock on them, same thing. Those sort of things kind of hurt. Even if you throw something that's high strength, you throw a huge block of something into them, and Mind Razor, they have the ward save. They don't give a crap. They're the honey badger, basically.
Okay.
Then you got a lot of it comes just from Nurgle. If you're not playing Nurgle for your majority, pretty much gimping yourself with demons a little bit. -1 to hit across the board. You're never going to be hitting on anything better than a 4 usually, unless you have some sort of magical assistance. The beasts in Nurgle are ridiculous. I don't even know. How many attacks you get? D6 plus 1 for everyone in the front rate.
Yep.
Chances are it's just going to give you just tons of attacks. At least 4 per model, probably 5, 6, whatever. Next up is the Skull Cannon. That thing is about slightly overcosted if it was a chariot. It's slightly overcosted if it was just a cannon. But throw them together, and it's just way too good. And it can get its wounds back if it charges into combat. Never mind that, but if you throw a character into it to try to kill it, like a Scarvet, oh, they have 2 guys with killing blows. That's going to be attacking before my Scarvet.
So what I hear you saying is that you need to take a Skink Chief on a Pterodon so that he's not killing blowable.
Well, actually, there was a battle report that we're going to post where I charged some Pegasus Knights into it.
Into the flank. Get it?
In the
flank. In the flank.
So no killing blow, and I still got destroyed.
Oh my gosh! Spoilers! Spoilers!
Next up is it's the demon instability. It's they're all they're never going to run from combat, and the demon instability is so much better than the crumble for the Tomb Kings or vampire counts. As to that, they also have some awesome special characters. Epidemus. I mean, come on. You can give them +1 strength, +1 toughness, killing blow, re-rolling ward saves. You should make them a sandwich too. I mean,
I think that's if you do enough wounds. His chart says you have to make your opponent a sandwich.
Yep.
And
if you do over 33.
Fate Weaver is also awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, but added to that, I mean, even the Winds of Magic, the Chaos chart that you roll off on, most of the time is going to be affecting your opponent more than it's going to be affecting you. So even that weighed in the favor of demons being this awesome.
So nothing. So the inherent randomness doesn't bother you putting them at number 1. Like one of the reasons they didn't rate for me was demonic instability. But if you boxcar, it doesn't matter if you lost by 1. If you boxcar, you're done. If your reign of chaos, while sure it usually won't hurt you. How many times at Brawler Bash did it neuter Jody's wizard, like him just rolling dice?
Yeah.
I can see that, but so far from what I have seen, it's never been as big a deal as what it's done to the opponent. The boxcar, yeah, it can happen, but I mean, if you have a BSB, it's re-rollable. So what's the chances of doubling up on the boxcars? I mean, you have more chances of snake eyeing with the BSB re-roll than you do the boxcar. But no, I can see that. That's definitely the hindrance is that those sort of tests can bite you in the butt. And I think beyond a lot of the Nurgle stuff, some of the other options aren't as legit. It has kind of like that one power build, but it's really an awesome build. Number 2 is, and this was kind of tough. I was trying to go between these two as warriors, and for a lot of the same reasons you were saying, Matt. I mean, the Demon Prince is just crazy. I mean, he's awesome, and then you give him, he has Unbreakable. You just throw him into whatever, and he don't care.
Demon Prince bad touch, man.
Super fast and mobile with the Skull Crushers, the Chimeras, the Chariots, and they're all really good. I mean, none of that stuff that's really fast is really overcost. It's all just awesome. And of course, you can take Nurgle, which is -1 to hit across the board, and they're even higher weapon skill than the demons. So you're almost always, except maybe some elves, are going to be hitting on 5s. So they're super survivable. The main reason why I didn't put them number 1 was no Skull Cannon. That's it. That was the kind of the main thing that kept them from being there. I couldn't. That was kind of, they were equal until I thought, oh, demons have Skull Cannon.
They do. They do in fact have a Skull Cannon. Most of the time, they have 2.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, even a few of the subpar options, like the Soul Grinder, is pretty good. I mean, it has some really nice special abilities. Gives them another shooting with the Stone Thrower, and heaven help you if you try to send a character into it. It's gonna I think it was an initiative test and does like D6 wounds or something.
Yeah, strength 10 hit, D6 wounds.
Yeah. Anyway, after that, number 3 I had was high elves. The big reasons were, I mean, the Frostheart Phoenix is definitely one of the best monsters in the game. Flying, strength 6, all that good stuff. Has great special choices. The White Lions are awesome. Sword Masters are, in my mind, equally good, just in a different way. Banner of the World Dragon is just probably the most ridiculous magic item in the game.
It which shall not be named.
Yes. The High Magic Lore, which works perfectly with the banner as well as the Book of Hoeth, and like you said, it's built to Death Star, which counteracts some of their reasons for that they kind of the bad side of high elves, which is how squishy they are. Also, Ariel is a really great special character. What she does for the army, making them even more survivable if you can take her. So, I mean, that's the reason why. And another spoiler: Dark Elves are a little bit further down, and that's kind of the big reason. Is High Elves are just so dang survivable. They're almost as killy, but they can survive anything as long as the magic's not completely screwing them. Reasons why they weren't higher ranked was if they don't go Death Star and they're very squishy. I mean, they're just strength, toughness 3, susceptible to a lot of the war crime spells like Dwellers will make them have a horrible day. And again, no Skull Cannon.
I'm surprised then that your list isn't the top 5 armies are all those with cannons.
Well, it's not necessarily just cannons. It's the Skull Cannon is just so dang good.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jody.
I was just gonna say. So it's a chariot, but I mean, look at ogres. They have a pretty BA cannon that's also a chariot.
It's less good in combat. I think it has a shorter range as a cannon, and it's 35 points more expensive.
And no ward save.
And no ward save. And less leadership. And no instability. And it can't regain wounds back. And its crew doesn't have killing blow.
And you can't attack to the side. Oh, I get all that. But it's still a chariot with a cannon.
Well, I'm sure that ogres have made Dallas's list solely because they have a chariot with a cannon attached to it.
For that matter, Dark Elves should have too, because their bolt sword is like a cannon.
It's like strength 7. It's debatable whether or not it gives you an armor save. In my mind, it doesn't. But I mean, I'm not the people who wrote Dark Elves, nor the people who FAQ things. So, but anyway, yeah, like it's strength 7 and it only does D3 wounds, so it's not as terrible.
Ooh. How much does it cost?
150. Oh, see, it also has to roll to hit though. Like, this is my big issue with cannons. Cannons just kind of point and go, hey, explodey.
Actually, something awesome about the Skull Cannon we just realized in our game. It has BS5, so the grape shot is pretty good.
I don't even want to talk to you right now.
Yeah.
Like, let Dallas keep going. Dallas needs to go to number 4. I'm done talking to Jody about the freaking Skull Cannon.
I got you on board. Skull Cannon hate.
It's still not any worse than it which shall not be named, but it's approaching that level. BS5. Are there like dead shades covered in blood riding that thing? Is that really what's happening? Like,
Well, see, this is the same thing as from 40K. They must have like laser guided stuff on it or something. I don't know.
Yeah. 40K is the whole game of drive my tank closer so I can hit this guy with my sword. So, I mean, I'm sure that they have lasers and big web. They probably have lasers that also have swords attached because it's grimdark. It'd be awesome.
All right. So on to number 4. It also appeared on Matt's list, which was Empire. and it's a lot. It's the same thing as what you were saying. It's definitely the toolbox army. It has kind of an answer in it for anything. It's one of those that's kind of doesn't matter too much what the meta is going to be like because it can adapt to it. But it does have some really good options. It has the demigryphs, which are really good. You know, +1 armor saves. Their knights are +1 or armor saves 1. Steam tanks are are awesome. There's just things that if you don't have an answer for it, it's just gonna take your lunch money and spend it on hookers. I don't know.
Interesting side fact: the steam tank is in fact a chariot with a cannon attached to it.
Very true.
Yes. You see, if the lizardmen had a skull cannon, the lizardmen would be number 1. Maybe. Maybe. Might be number 2. But other than that, the reasons why they're not higher is I think they can kind of pay for some of that versatility. They're not as good in any one thing as the other armies are that have those. And of course, they're just humans, so they're super squishy. If you get beyond that 1 armor saves and such, their normal troops are super squishy.
Gotcha.
And kind of what you were saying is the reasons why they're not, like orcs and goblins aren't in there, is just I feel like they're less reliable. I mean, animosity usually doesn't screw you, but it can. So yeah, that's kind of why orcs and goblins ended up being off my top 5. But they were like, if I was going to put them in there, they were probably around 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that range. Next up, my rounding out the top 5 is Dark Elves. Mainly it's just that they are super killy, super versatile. They have all the lores, and they have the dark lores, so they can really tailor their magic to suit exactly what they need. The warlocks are broken. I mean, they're just ridiculously good. I mean,
Hey! They can't use their ward saves against Slanesh stuff. That's a complete handicap, and it will come into play many, many times.
Many, many times. Has it come up yet?
No, but in fairness, I've only played Dark Elves against our gaming group, and we only recently got a Warriors player that didn't play straight Khorne, and I didn't play Jody with Dark Elves when he was running Demonette blocks.
There you go. The tons of beyond that is it, along with the Dark Riders, just gives them a ton of fast cab that they can use within in the Chaff War. So they're very rarely going to lose that. So they can pick exactly what combats they want. And also, and this is probably because coming from a Lizardman point of view, is all their monsters are so much better than mine. I mean, they're cheaper, they're better. And they don't have to have characters riding them. Yeah.
It's good to be the king.
Reasons why they're not higher and they're at number 5 is kind of the same with some of the others. They're very susceptible to the war crime spells like Dwellers. That goes off, it's going to take out a block because they're only strength toughness 3. They don't have cannons to necessarily deal with some of those types of targets. And if they had them on chariots, they'd be even better. And kind of like what you were saying, they're not super protected in combat like the High Elves, and that's kind of, again, them lower than what the High Elves have.
I can see that. I mean, excuse me, you're wrong, but I can see why you would think that. Okay, no, all that stuff makes sense. Joe, do you want to grace us with your top 5?
I will. I'll do it in reverse order to change things up a little bit. I'll start with number 5. And I'm actually going to be, I think, kind of a surprise to everybody. My number 5 is Orcs and Goblins.
You did it because you hate Doom Divers. That's my guess.
I'm gonna be honest. If they didn't have Doom Divers, they probably would be at number 6. I think Doom Divers are next in line to Skull Cannons with. Oh, I'm sorry. You have some knights. Not anymore. What armor save? They're just, and they can correct. I mean, they're just so good. But I think what put them up there, and it was between them and Empire. What put them over Empire in my mind was Empire is very squishy. Unless it's your stank, it's easy to kill them. Even the Demigriffs, they have a really good armor save, but they're only toughness 4, and they only have really high strength on the charge. And otherwise, they just kind of sit there and, well, like 1 or 2 attacks from the riders. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot better Monstrous Cav out there, and although they are good, and I would take them if I played Empire, I don't think that you have to have them in your Steam tank to be even close to competitive. And even then, you're still not really winning tournaments as much as other armies. So I just feel like the lack of survivability. Once you get through them, they're over. And once you get into the squishy human flesh, I mean, the Huracanum is good because it helps buff them. It makes them better, but it's just not. I don't know. I just couldn't bring myself to put them over Orcs and Goblins because even though Orcs and Goblins don't really have much armor, they're so cheap. You can put so many of them on the board. I just feel like they're extremely versatile. I have yet to see Animosity kill a game. I'm sure it happens. I know it happens, but I have yet to witness it. Whether it be playing against UMAT or even in tournaments.
My count is at 1. For 8th edition, my count is 1 game that I did not win because of Animosity.
Yeah.
Like, it has certainly screwed me up and lost me points.
Yeah.
But it has not actually cost me a game except for once.
And I think that's why, because I feel there's ways around it, to be honest. I feel like there's things you can do to counter it. The reason Skaven didn't make top 5 for me was that very reason. They're so fickle, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't fix how fickle they are. If you roll poorly, you're not going to win as Skaven, period. It doesn't matter how good you are, because you'll blow yourself up. Orcs and Goblins, if you roll poorly, like you said, it can happen, but it's not as likely. I just feel like they have so many options that are good. I mean, don't get me wrong, they have a ton that are bad, but what works very, very well in their book. I just feel like that's, to me, why they went number 5.
Okay.
I don't know. The only bad option in that book is the giant. I mean, that's about it.
The spiders, Ragnarok's pretty good. Not great, but good. But I feel like the other spiders, the fast cav ones, aren't that great. I'd rather Wolf Riders or Chariots.
They're pretty nice because they can go over buildings.
Yeah.
And they can actually fight in buildings. Not that matters, but the spiders and the riders fight in the building. Like, they don't dismount to fight in a building, which is kind of nice. But really, the worst choices in the book are like the squig hoppers.
Yeah.
But even those are workable. You can make those work. Everything you can make it work in the list.
Yeah. But that's why they're number 5 for me. Number 4 was tough. It actually is going to end up being Demons of Chaos, and they were higher. They originally started out at number 2 for me, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized they're really only good if you go Nurgle. And they're not, even mono Nurgle, I don't think is as good as other lists and other builds out there. The Skull Cannon, it's way underpriced, it's completely broken, but hey, if you misfire, you can blow yourself up. Hey, if you roll, an 8 on Winds of Magic and fail a 3d6 leadership test, you're gonna die. So the fickleness hurts them more than I think it hurts orcs and goblins. I guess part of it's being a demon player. I mean, 5 games and twice my general got destroyed because of failed leadership tests because of poor wins on, poor win rolls. So it happens. But the thing is, they actually do that very, very well. I mean, the Nurgle list is extremely hard to play against. It doesn't matter how long you're in combat; they just kind of stay there forever. So it's very forgiving, very forgiving. I would say even more forgiving than ogres, which is saying a lot. But that's kind of why it made number 4 not any higher. They're very solid, very good, a lot of really powerful stuff, but I feel like the fickleness really is a little more potent than being a player is more potent than playing against it, if that makes sense. And I'm sure Orcs and Goblins players feel the same way. When you're playing it, it sucks, but playing against it doesn't seem that bad.
No, unless you're Shimmergloom or Malorian, playing with Orcs and Goblins is not that terrible.
Yeah.
Watching their battle reports and stuff from Brawler Bash was like painful for me to watch. I just wanted to like throw a Black Orc back in time for them. Like just take it. Just take this thing to stop animosity.
So moving on to number. What am I? I just did 5 and 4. So moving on to number 3. It's Dark Elves. Dark Elves hit 3, pretty much every reason you guys already talked about. Very killy, extremely versatile, which is really nice. Not many bad things in the book. Excuse me. Warlocks, although I don't think that they are the best thing since sliced bread, I think that they are very, very good. Part of that comes from every time I've played against them, I've just killed them. I mean, they probably used them wrong. That's probably the thing. The players probably just used them wrong. But I charged one group with the Frost Phoenix, which obviously we knew how that was going to go. And then the other group, I think I just shot it to death. I mean, 30 shots from anything, even though it's ballistic base, only toughness 3, they only have a 4-up. So, I mean, they have, armor too, but ooh. So
yeah, the Warlocks don't win. The Warlocks really, to me, are awesome, and it's because I'd pay 125 points for a unit of 5 without the magic levels. I would pay the points if they weren't a level 2 wizard with 2 awesome spells.
Yeah.
So they start to get stupid for the same reason the Skull Cannon is stupid. 125 points for a fast cavalry wizard with 5 wounds and a 4-up ward save is excellent for those that has those 2 spells. Like, that's a great deal. I'd buy it every game. But it's great in close combat. It's fast cav. It's in the rare slot, not the hero slot. I mean, it's just they get ridiculous.
Exactly. But I just feel like as good as they are. Now, granted, I mean, if I spend all my ballistic skill shooting or all my shooting to take them out, I'm not shooting at squishy elves, so that helps you as well. So they are good, but they definitely hit the number 3 spot. I think the real thing that actually put my next group, which is High Elves, above them is the fact that Dark Elves don't have the protection, and we've kind of mentioned it a couple times. One solid, I mean, heck, a magic missile can just destroy Witch Elves. So I feel like just if you can thin them out, they're not nearly as scary. They have good monsters, but not as good as the Hydra used to be. And again,
in fairness, I'm not sure the Frostheart Phoenix is as good as the Hydra used to be.
I agree with that completely. So they're number 3. Number 2, as I kind of already said, is High Elves. I actually feel the High Elf book is also extremely versatile. The characters in the High Elf book, I think, are some of the best characters in the book. The Anointed is amazing. Alarielle is amazing. Even Tyrion is actually really, really good for 410 points, what he does. I'm surprised we don't really see people take him. He's just so expensive. A level 4 with the Book of Hoeth, solid choice. The Prince, solid choice, high stat line. Even the Sea Captain, he's 100 points, but it's still a decent ability. Make a leadership tech, and you get to you pretty much can't be flanked or rear charged. You can turn around. So there's definitely solid characters. I feel. Plus, let's not even mention the fact that the Handmaiden put in a block of sisters makes them quick to fire, because BS5 needs no movement penalties. So these have a lot of really good combinations, a lot of versatility like the Dark Elves, and the reason that they're put over the top is because of the fact that they can stay alive. Whether it's a Frost Phoenix giving your opponents always strike last and -1 strength, so you just kill them all before they can do anything, or it's the fact that you can get a 3-up ward save fairly easily with a couple combinations. You don't even need the banner. I mean, a 3-up ward save, pretty good in and of itself. So if you want to, you could do 2 Death Stars better than most armies can do 1. So they're definitely up there. The reason they didn't make number 1 in the end for me was that Magic is still kind of fickle, and if you'll notice, everything that I have in my list so far, except for Dark Elves, have a couple of really good competitive lists, and otherwise they're kind of mid-tier. Coming up number 1, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think actually I certainly concede that High Elves, and I did concede that High Elves are better at surviving combat than Dark Elves.
Yeah.
I think my problem is the reliance on magic to do that.
Yeah.
Like I was playing a game, the game that I put up recently on Bromance between me and Yoshi, and he killed he targeted some Blackguard with Scorch or something, and I was like, well, I only care about the front rank being alive anyway. Like the extra bodies are attacks I pay to get into combat, and I feel like that's not true for High Elves a lot of times, and so they need extra. I feel like they need the extra stuff, but I certainly won't argue that they're more defensive. I guess it's a personality thing. I value the attack more than the defense, and so I value Dark Elves more highly than High Elves, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely does, and they definitely do have attacks of frenzy. The fact they have hatred, so they're always getting their rerolls no matter what in that first round, critical. So there's definitely things that they can do that really help. The number 1 for me is Warriors of Chaos. I thought about why I put them number 1, and my first reason was because the real gamey net lists are just so hard to kill, hard to beat. It doesn't matter they don't have a shooting phase with some of those lists, because who cares? By turn 2, they're running their chariots into you. So they're just so tough. They're so tough to beat for all the same reasons you guys mentioned. But the reason I think they actually stayed in number 1 over others is even if you build another list, even if you put their infantry into play, they're still good. Their infantry is still better, well, by far, than Lizardmen. Poor Dallas. I mean, their initiative's high, their weapon skill high. They have 2 attacks pretty much across the board. They have solid armor no matter what. Strength 5, give them halberds, or 3-up if you give them shields. They're just so durable. I mean, I think that they're, for the number of bodies you can put down for the durability they have, is really solid. So I think even if you don't build the net lists and the crazy lists that are, just winning tournaments, I think that they're still a really good army. Definitely some bad things in there, but Chaos Dwarves actually almost made it top 5. The main reason they didn't is I didn't know the book well enough and didn't know other than hearing about the Jedi Destroyer being so amazing and the magma cannon, I don't really see him very much out there, and didn't know him well enough to know how I really felt about him.
When we're off the air, I will continue my tirade against Ash Storm and how it craps on everything I love.
Deal.
So that's interesting then, because we had warriors, dark elves, high elves were in everybody's list.
Yep.
And Dallas, where were warriors at for you again?
Warriors were number 2.
Okay, so we had warriors 1, 2, and 3. So I think we're all in. Bromance is in agreement. We have, if this is a quorum, Bromance is in agreement that warriors are one of the top 3 armies.
Yep.
And certainly dark elves and high elves rank up there too, since those were the other unanimous ones.
Yep.
I don't know. I really can't get behind demons, and part of it is I just don't think I've played enough games against them, because everything that's not Nurgle is really, really squishy. And so once you get out of that one list, to me, it starts to kind of fall apart. The whole army starts to fall apart.
Well,
no, I definitely see that.
Even if they are squishy, I just don't see them as that squishy because they still have that 5-up ward save no matter what.
Okay, so but Bretonia gets a 5-up ward save and has armor saves on top of that. How does that factor in?
Well, first off, Bretonia only has ward save 6 unless it's strength 5 or higher. So, I mean, it's not always going to be in play. And they also have fewer bodies. So every time they're losing a wound, it's a bigger deal than losing one for the others.
And it's only on their knights. Their peasants don't get it.
Isn't there something you can give to a character and stick in some peasants where they get it?
Yeah, it's a prayer icon that you can put on a wizard, but you can give it to them. So I mean, you can do that. I mean, but that's still only one unit, and you're having to put a wizard in there to babysit them, basically.
Oh yeah, I'm not trying to say that's a good idea. I was just
you can do it.
No,
yeah,
it's not a bad idea. It's just that's the only way you can get it to anything other than your knights. But it's just that and they're also the fact that no matter what, they're still going to be sticking around. I mean, they don't care if they lose combat.
I think the thing that frustrates me the most about demonic instability is that you can choose to not reroll with your BSB.
Yeah, it's pretty badass.
Like if it was, oh look, you failed by 1, haha, re-roll it, oops, double 6s, that would be different. But it's like, I failed by 2, I'm not going to take that chance.
Yeah, I'll keep that roll.
Right?
Yep.
Well, that's pretty close to our time. We're not actually going to get to the lower tier stuff. So we'll get back with you guys next week, and hopefully we'll be able to get Jody and Dallas here again as well.
Yeah, and everyone.
You guys have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, anyone that's listening, if y'all think that we're wrong on something, maybe you think that, I don't know, Tomb Kings is the most powerful army out there. Give us some reasons why.
Spoiler, Tomb Kings is showing up next week.
I think for everybody.
No, that's a good idea, Dallas. I mean, if people want to tell us that we're wrong, I'm willing to entertain any and all discussions about that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not willing if someone tells me that Tomb Kings is number 1. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess that's our time.
Oh, that was a bad joke.
Oh. I guess that's our time, guys, and we'll get back with you next week, and same bat time, same bat channel, and we'll talk about some bad armies then.
All right, peace out.